skies, mountains strong and sparkling snow, a scent of freedom in the wind, or the emerald fields below. To thee we brought our hopes, our dreams, for thee we stand together, our land of peace, where proudly flies the maple leaf forever. Long may it wave and grace our own blue skies and stormy weather. Within my heart, above my home, the maple leaf forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, last minute of play.
Oh, maple leaf around the world, you speak as you rise high above, of courage, peace, and quiet strength, of the Canada that I love. Remind us all, our union bound by ties we cannot sever, bright flag revered on every ground, the maple leaf forever. Long may it wave and grace our own blue skies and stormy weather. Within my heart, above my home, the maple leaf forever.
Welcome, Moe Norman fans and students from around the world. Welcome to my university, proposed university. I always thought of Moe Norman as a keystone striker. Initially rejected, ultimately respected, because he was basically kicked off the tour in 1959 after he was 4th place at the Greater New Orleans Open and never went back to the big tour. Now this is the logo for my proposed university, called the University of Murray Irwin Norman Studies. I've added some words of encouragement to those who wish to receive them as such. The world's most repeatable swing, biomechanically perfect, science not violence, play from the heart, and stay with it. And stay with it is the #1 thought that Moe had in his mind when he was playing his absolute best golf. Craig Shanklin asked him that to describe it for him, and he made a position similar to what you're seeing in that image. Now, the mantra for my university is to thy own self be true, because this essentially is an instructional video from myself to myself. It's simple and easy, quick and fun. And play golf subconsciously. I figured out the physics of Moe Norman's golf swing, and in particular the master move. And I also figured out how to do it subconsciously, which I'll explain. Pure and simple, pure and straight. The game's so easy it's laughable, Moe said, if you go about the right procedures. Now I want to take a minute and thank Mark Evershed for making this video. It took a lot out of him to do it. $500 an hour for the equipment. But he did an excellent job, and I'm so thankful. I would ask a student over a period of 4 years study of Moe Norman's golf swing to view this video maybe a dozen times. And each time you look at this video, as your understanding widens and your knowledge deepens, you'll see something you haven't seen before because you know what to look for. Thank you, Mark Evershed. I can't thank you enough for doing that. That's my students will really appreciate that. Now, your mind works in pictures, not in words. So I'm going to describe Moe Norman's master move. I'm going to use this image of Mount Fuji in Japan. It's very symmetrical. It's even on both sides, no matter how you look at it. So, if my hands come down this side of Mount Fuji as I swing down to the club as an angular descent, I counterbalance that angular descent with this angular descent as I plane on my legs and make the sit move. That's how you make the master move. It turns out to be a vertical drop. Now, I first saw Moe Norman in 1967 in the summertime. This is the springtime of 1967. There's a gym club, and there's one of the finest physics professors in the entire province of British Columbia. His name is Nordman. There's a D in there. Professor Ronald Arthur Nordman. And there's a mathematics professor, Gaskill, on the other side. So I've got science on one side of me, mathematics on the other side. But remember, I didn't know who Moe Norman was at this time. This is me here in the right clothing. But I want to point out something to this. I was still in a state of shock when this photograph was taken because there's 13 students that showed up for this photo shoot, and more than half of them I had never seen before in my life. And I was a real enthusiast. I went to every class. I couldn't believe it. I said, what are you guys? I didn't say anything. I want to be polite. But I couldn't believe that many guys would show up for a photo shoot when they never showed up for the class. They were too lazy to get out of bed in the morning. But sure enough, they show up for the photo shoot because they want the fame and glory of having their picture in the yearbook, you see. But the professor, he's no dummy. He knew that most of these fellows just showing up to get their picture in the annual. So the next year, he changed the rules. This is us again, only this time there's only 5 of us. There's Professor Nordman, Professor Gaskill, and there's me in the middle, a small, shy fellow in the middle. It's a lot like Moe Norman. But see what they've done. They've whittled it down to 5. It was an invitation. It became like the Masters. You couldn't just show up. It wasn't publicly known when and where the photo shoot was going to take place. I was told to show up here at this time, and don't tell anybody else because half the school will show up. Now, at some point, their attitude still hasn't changed. I went to my 50-year high school reunion, and I still got the same attitude now as I had then. It hasn't changed a bit. 1969, the next year. This is me going over the bar before I learned how to bend the pole in the pole vault. But I wanted you to look at my buddy Simon here. He's high jumping. He's going over the bar backwards. He's not doing that because some coach told him to do it. He's doing it on his own. Because as you'll find, as we talk about Dick Fosbury and the Fosbury flop, it was the young people who figured it out first. It wasn't the senior mathematicians or senior instructors that figured it out. Now I want to talk about deflection, because Moe Norman figured out how to hit a golf ball with 0 deflection. Low and long, and you can't go wrong. So if I want to hit this cue ball and billiard ball with 0 side spin, I have to hit it center of mass to center of mass with a long line of compression. If I wish to induce side spin on this cue ball, I have to hit it off center, in which case there is deflection 100% of the time. So if I want to induce side spin, I have to hit it off center. The cue ball will no longer go in the same direction as the cue because I'm striking it off center. So again, Moe Norman figured out how to hit a golf ball with 0 deflection. And since we're on the subject of deflection, I want to show you something here. This is a harmonic balancer that goes on a motor, the crankshaft of a motor. It transforms inconsistent energy into, smooths it out. It's called a harmonic balancer or dampener. And it's heavy because in modern physics, math and energy are considered equivalents. E equals mc squared. So I have to have mass in my golf club in order to change the form of energy from the club head to the ball efficiently. Now I'm going to show you something about, I want to talk about the tipping point, because Moe Norman played off the tipping point. If I broke the swing into 5 different parts, the club alignment position, starting position, the top of the backswing position, impact, and finish, this represents Moe Norman. Now the tipping point is defined as the point that separates 2 states of equilibrium. This is a state of equilibrium at rest and balance, and this is a state of equilibrium, rest and balance. And the tipping point, as long as the object is the same, the surface is the same, the tipping point will never change. But what happens here is Moe, he starts in number 1 position, he's like this. Number 2 position, he goes to the tipping point, right? He says, if I take the club outside, what will happen? I'll fall flat in my face. My swing balances me. So he starts in an unbalanced lunging position at the tipping point, and his trigger pulls up and away from the tipping point. In number 3 position, which is at the top, he's well on his way to reclaiming his balance. And on the position number 4 at impact, he's on perfect balance every time. That essentially is how Moe Norman played golf subconsciously, because he used his internal balancing instincts instead of conscious thought to hit a golf ball. Now, when I retired to the farm a few years back, I thought I'd take one last look at this Moe Norman swing, because I couldn't figure it out. For 52 years I worked on it. It started off as a high school project. Couldn't figure it out. 52 years later, I still haven't figured it out. So I'll give it one last try, I thought to myself. And you know what? The fate and destiny would have it. I figured it out. Because I've got 4 acres here. I've got 200 yards from corner to corner. It's noisy here at nighttime, close to the railroad tracks. So I could hit balls 24/7, rain or shine. Every time I got an idea in my head, I go out and try it. So the purpose of what I'm doing now is to advance and promote the Moe Norman ball striking method. I want to educate, guide, and encourage the next and future generations of aspiring pure ball strikers who will, for the most part, be using Moe Norman's type swing. Now, it's different than the high jump. The high jump, you've got one body type. Tall, slender, a lot of spring in the step. But golfers come in all different shapes and sizes. And I consider myself the world's foremost authority on the Moe Norman ball striking method. Some may not like it, but I don't care about that. Now, Titleist was the first ones to step up and help Moe with a reverse scholarship. And then Nike stepped up, and Natural Golf stepped up. And it took a while for them to do it, but they did it. So the list of individuals I like to work with to promote, to work with me in my partnership with my university, it would be Titleist. First ones to step up. And then Nike, Natural Golf, but none of them are interested. I'll go on to other things. We'll be looking for partnership. Now, the master move. Now, Moe Norman described the master move as a vertical drop from the top, right? As I explained it, so I swing my arms down to the ball, angular descent. I come down one side of Mount Fuji. As I work into my sit move, I come down the other side of Mount Fuji, but it has to be properly timed. And I start sliding forward before my hands get to the top. It's because I'm in advanced position going back. So according to the laws of physics, there's only one way I can do it, and that is to combine this angular descent with this angular descent. It has to be properly timed. I want to talk about the sit move for a minute, because Moe Norman said, you can't do it unless you sit. You have to sit. Well, what is it? The master move. It's all about the sit move. And I would tell a student, forget about the single plane. Work on the sit move. Because first of all, you're building a platform, a solid platform, which to swing your arms down the line. So a lot of it is about arm swing. You're working with gravity. You're not jumping and spinning like this. You're starting with knees locked, and you're working down with gravity. That's why my left arm doesn't straighten out, because I'm working with the centrifugal force. If I jump and spin and work away from the centrifugal force, my lead arm is much more likely to straighten out. Farther. Now, I can also have, with a sit move, I need to have the ball and my hands farther out from me, because I'm working down, closer to the ground, closer to the ball. So I have to have the ball farther out and closer to a single plane. If I'm jumping and spinning and getting on my toes, I need to have the ball closer to me, otherwise I couldn't reach it. Because I'm pushing away from the earth for speed rather than embracing the earth for purity of technique. It's less effort, especially if you're swinging a heavy club. It's way easier to swing with gravity, with the weight of the club, than working against it. So there's less effort. You want the least amount of physical effort, the least amount of conscious thought, and the best results, which is the lowest scores. Lateral slide. Because I have a wide stance, I'm free now to move laterally. If I have a narrow stance, I'd fall over, one little touch, and I fall over. So even on a 50-yard chip shot, Moe Norman had a distinct and prominent sit move. His whole torso came down this way. Because I went to a place in North Vancouver called the Green Room, and I had in my video, they take your video and they show it to you, and I couldn't believe it. I was allowing the centrifugal force of the motion of the club to pull me off the ball this way. So the answer to that problem was to start at a lunging position, near the tipping point, and work away from that tipping point to counterbalance the energy that's pulling me off the ball this way. Now I'm counterbalancing that energy, and it takes less effort to do it. It's opposite to a lunge. The sit move is opposite to a lunge. Counterbalancing, build a solid platform for a pure arm swing. A lot of it's about arm swing. Now, most golfers know what a delayed hit is. It's like that song, Born to be Wild. In the song by Steppenwolf from the movie Easy Rider, there's a line that goes, fire all your guns at once. So if I'm going to have a delayed hit, I don't fire a gun here. I don't fire a gun here. I wait till I get right into the business zone and fire all my guns at once at the ball. That's the theory and principle behind the delayed hit. You're giving time and energy for the energy to build up before you release. The sit move is the same way. So if I start with my knees locked and I turn away from the ball. I don't sit here. I don't fire a gun here. I don't fire a gun here. I wait till I get right to the top and I fire all my guns at once. That's a delayed sit. People are in too much of a hurry to hit the ball, Moe used to say. He's talking about the sit move. It's timing for the math. That's your most important timing component in the swing. As soon as you get to the top, before I get to the top, I start sliding forward. That's a critical part because there's no pause in Moe Norman's swing. If you're going to hit a million golf balls in 5 years, you don't want to have a pause in your swing. So it's important to start sliding forward. But the reason I can do that is because I'm already part way back when I start. When I start my swing, I pull up away from the tipping point. That's my first move, but I'm 60-40. I got 60% of my weight on my trail leg, and I'm pivoting on my trail leg. Shoulders into my turn. I can't pick the club up. I can't take it outside because I'll fall flat in my face. So I'm in a position early in the swing. So before my hands get to the top, I can start moving forward. If I start 50-50, I've got to wait longer before I'm in a position to start moving forward. So that's part of what I call Moe's advanced forward standing position. I'm advancing my position going back in many ways. I'm forward with my posture, with my weight, balance point, and I'm standing. My knees are locked right up until the time I play into the sit move. Now I play into my legs. Now the lead leg, it'll bend in. As I pivot and turn away from the ball, the lead leg is going to bend in a little bit. But the rear leg has to stay straight and locked right up till the time. Now I talked about Moe's trigger. The first thing Moe would do, he would go to the tipping point and then he'd firm up his lead arm. He'd pull up and away from that. I'll exaggerate. Pull up and away with a trigger because that determines where the club goes. You see, if I'm sitting back like this on my heels, so weight on my heels, knees flexed, and I turn away from the ball and I don't try and direct the club in any way, just turn away from the ball, my arms are going around me. But if I put myself in Moe's advanced forward standing position and I pull away, now my arms are going underneath me. I swing my arms underneath me so long. I swing my arms underneath me so well because I put myself in that position and I don't consciously direct the club in any way. I just turn away from the ball. So there's a trigger. Now, the bigger the trigger, the more inside I come. See, if I'm like this, my arms are around me. If I go to the tipping point, my arms are underneath me. If I pull up and away with my trigger, now the club goes down the middle between one extreme and the other. So the size of the trigger is important in the direction of where the club takes. And you don't have to be on balance anywhere other than at impact. Now the tipping point, I already explained that with the bowling pin. It never changes. Because if I take the club outside, I'll fall flat in my face. It's at the tipping point. It's the most repeatable swing because you're not thinking. You're not using conscious, like a cat that lands on its feet. Okay, now modified clubs. Now, Moe Norman, when he was 18, he had an encounter with a carpenter, and it was not an apprentice carpenter or a journeyman. Moe's not going to ask questions of a person like that. He's going to pick out a seasoned professional carpenter and ask him, I want to ask you about your hammer. Is it heavy or light? It's heavy. Why? It doesn't waver as much. I don't bend as many nails. That's what was, gee, he's only going to here, and we're going way back to here. I've got to get heavy clubs with thick handles. It's like a motorcycle. If I have a heavier motorcycle on the highway, I don't get blown in and out as much as I go past a big rig or a bus. Heavier objects are less affected by outside forces. Simple law of physics. Thicker handles, there's less hand action. The thicker the handle, the less hand action there's going to be because it restricts hand action. The thinner the handle, the more, so I can play a tune, like a bent nail to a carpenter. And if you're using a heavier club, you're automatically going to be more consistent because it takes more energy to start it, it takes more energy to stop it, and it takes more energy to throw it off its track. So I'm going to stay on track better because I have a heavier club. Of course, you get up in years, you reduce the weight a little bit. Momentum wants to go in a straight line. Now that's a fact. A law of physics says that momentum is energy and mass and motion. It's not being controlled in any way. It's on its own, and it wants to go in a straight line. It doesn't want. It takes energy to make it bend or curve. Now Jack Nicklaus, when he was a young lad, all he ever played was McGregor equipment. In McGregor, they used to put a little plug, a metal plug, at the top of the grip. And Jack Nicklaus talks about the secret grip. He says, when I was a young lad, I used to, every now and again, I'd get a club without a plug. He said, I didn't understand it then, I still don't fully understand it now, but I just didn't like it. Because what happens when you add mass to your hand area, you're slowing the hands down for better contact and better timing. Plus, you're going to be more consistent because, like I say, mass, it takes more energy to start it, stop it, throw it off its track. You're automatically going to be more consistent. Another thing Jack Nicklaus did was he shaved the grooves off. Normally, you're allowed 25 thousandths of an inch with depth of your grooves on the face of your club. Well, Jack Nicklaus shaved his down to 15 thousand. Well, why would he do that? To reduce the spin. And the reason he does that is because the more a ball spins through the air, the more it's affected by the wind. Because more surface of the ball is contacting molecules of air as it flies through the air. So the less spin you have, the less affected by the wind. So Jack Nicklaus would hit the ball higher and float it in a soft landing. Just like Moe later on in his career, he said, go out there and catch it. It won't even hurt you. I hit the ball higher. It's easier on me and everything. So Jack Nicklaus had modified clubs. And he said with the secret grip, he said, you'll be consistently longer. Because if you're hitting the ball a long way once in a while, that doesn't make you a long hitter. It's your average. Distance must be measured in averages. Back weighting. That's what the secret grip is all about, is having extra mass in the hand area. It's like the carpenter with his hammer. It's more consistent. Okay, advanced forward, I've already explained a little bit about advanced forward standing position. I'm advancing my position going back in many ways. My shoulders into my turn. My knees are locked because there's fewer parts. There's fewer moving parts now. Because if I have my knees flexed, and look at all the moving parts I'm having. But if I lock my knees, there's very few moving parts. All I'm doing is swinging my arms. Practice is made easier because you're making a shortcut. I'm limiting the foot of the swing. That's, if I hit 1 million golf balls in 5 years, that's a million feet of club head travel I'm saving because I'm starting behind the ball. First tee jitters. That used to be one of the problems I had as I played as an amateur golfer. I get on that first tee and with the cameras and the fans and everything, and wiggling and waggling for 25 seconds, negative thoughts creep in and nervousness builds, right? But if I get up there once, twice, and let it go, very few first tee jitters. Or when you're coming down the last hole for the club championship, that last approach shot to win the tournament. You're less likely to be nervous because you're not using conscious thought to hit the ball. I'm using my internal balancing instincts. It's like a cat that lands on its feet. Early and full lateral slide. As I explained, before my hands get to the top, I start moving forward. So it puts myself in a much more hittable position. Free as a bird. If I have a wide stance, I'm free as a bird to move laterally. Whereas if I have a narrow stance, one will touch it, I'll fall over. Lead and lag. I'm laterally so much I can't spin. And I'm allowing this lead and lag to take place. Because if I'm 60-40 at impact, on the other side of the equation, I'm going to be 60-40 at address. Already part way back when I start. Pure arm swing. Somebody said that Moe Norman had the best independent arm swing in the game. Whoever said that, I don't know who said it, but I'd like to find out if anybody can help me. But that's the reason, one of the reasons he has such a good arm swing is because it's a solid platform. Once I jump and spin, I would dissolve my platform for an arm swing. But if I'm solid, with both feet flat on the ground at impact, I can swing my arms purely down the line. Now, Moe Norman had a closed stance, about 15 degrees. So if I was to swing my arms pivoting on my trail leg, I'd be about 15 degrees right of the target. But if I pivot to my lead leg 60-40, now I'm swinging purely down the line. So much of it is about pure arm swing. Remember what I said? I swing my arms underneath me so long. I swing my arms underneath me so well. I swing through the golf course, not around it. Greater consistency of ball speed, inverse proportionality. Now, I figured out the last piece of the puzzle for the Moe Norman swing through the motorcycle. And you might think, well, what in the world has a Harley-Davidson motorcycle got to do with Moe Norman's golf swing? Well, I'll explain it like this. This motorcycle here, it has 2 fuel filler caps in the gas tank here. Now the one on the right is normal. Anti-clockwise to remove it, clockwise, click, click, click. It's designed that way so you don't over tighten it. This side's the exact opposite. So I went in to get fuel about a dozen times, and each time I'd go down to that left side and click, click, click. So it bothered me. So I thought, well, I'll come up with a solution for that problem, because I believe there's a solution for every problem. And I came up with a fundamental mathematical principle, which is inverse proportionality. Whatever you do on one side of the equation, you do the exact opposite on the other side. So I never had a problem since when I get fuel. Every time I go down to that left side, I think inverse proportionality. By the time my hand hits that cap, I've already committed to going the opposite direction. And at that moment, I knew it would work for the Moe Norman swing. And sure enough, I was right. The last piece of the puzzle. So if I'm going to sit on this side of the equation, what do you think I'm going to do on this side of the equation? Stand. Reverse opposite, right? Squat, jump, and spin. That would be your normal. Squat, jump, and spin. The other way, Moe Norman's way, is to stand, sit, and slide. Only not in that order. You slide first before you relax. Another inverse proportionality factor is you see people, they relax, and then when they go to hit the ball, they're tense. Whereas Moe, he's tense, relaxed. Inverse proportionality. Play golf subconsciously. Moe said the only way you're ever going to reach your maximum potential is to play golf subconsciously. Like Lee Trevino said, the most powerful part of the human body is the subconscious mind. Now, Moe was asked, do we overwork or do we overthink? Both. Both. Brain works best not thinking. I said, reduce first cheek jitters. A cat always lands on its feet. Now, a cat, it's not an option to land on your back if you're falling. Anything more than a foot. So the cat, he rights itself with internal, it's called the righting reflex, internal balancing instinct. He doesn't use conscious thought to do it. So what the cat does, it splits its body into 2 parts, an upper axis and a lower axis. The first thing the cat does is square his shoulders and head to the target, which is the ground, while the tail end is still upside down. But by the time he hits the ground, he lands on all 4 feet. Called the righting reflex. It's much more reliable. It's much more reliable than using your brain to hit a golf ball. Now here's a good exercise here to figure out what Moe did subconsciously. I call it the locked position at the top. So if I'm in this position here with my knees flexed and I go to the top with my narrow stance, what do I have to do to hit the ball out there far enough to win the US Open? I have to jump and spin. But if if I have a wide stance and my knees are locked, what do I do now if I'm locked at this position? I can't go up because I'm already up. The only thing I can do is sit and slide. Lock the position at the top. It forces you to realize what Moe did to play golf subconsciously. Inverse proportionality. Whatever I do on one side, the opposite on the other side. Again, working up, I need to be close to the ball. Working down, I can have the ball out away from it, closer to a single plane. It doesn't have to be a perfect single plane. Less conscious thought, more repeatable. Consistency of ball speed. Now, if I have a heavier club, I'm automatically going to be consistent. Accuracy of distance, like the 12th hole of Augusta. You can hit the ball right at the pin, but if you're not enough, you go in the water, too much, you're in the flower bed at the back. Again, heavier club hit is more consistent. Stabilizing factor, engaging distance is the weight of the club head. CPGA, I remember CPGA was on CTV one years ago, and Moe knew his mother was watching, so he was nervous. And his bailout is to the right. He wants to eliminate the left side of the golf course. So they only televised the last half dozen holes or so in those days. But if you had a little TV set with a rabbit ear antenna, you could tune in. So he knew his mother was watching, so he was nervous. So on every approach shot for those last half dozen holes, Moe was off 15, 20 feet off to the right. But he was exactly pin high. So he had a 15, 20 footer for a birdie on every hole. Upper body player. Now, Moe called himself an upper body player. Now, if I lock my knees, like Moe did, and turn away from the ball, I'm 100% upper body. My lower body is locked. I'm not moving any parts down there at all. It's all upper body. But as soon as I get to the top and I play into my legs, the sit move, that's all lower body. And then once I get to the impact and I'm solid on both feet, it's all upper body again. So I'm upper body, lower body, upper body. So 2 out of 3 phases of the swing is upper body. That's why Moe called himself an upper body player. But the phase where he plays into his legs, that's all lower body. Okay, single plane. I would tell a student, forget about the single plane. Focus on the sit move, and you'll be closer to a single plane. Moe moved away from the single plane later in his career when he realized it was too stressful for him. What did he do? He did the things that the great pros were telling him to do all along. If the player would just narrow his stance a little bit, the player would just let his arms hang a little bit. Not a lot, because we're dealing with long-term swing DNA. But he said, it was easier on me. She's thought like this. I haven't hit the ball this pure before. Because he said when he was 72 years of age, Moe said, people, I was wrong all my life. So if he had have known early in his career what he had figured out later in his career, he would have won all the major tournaments in the world. He was that good. Now the single plane is too extreme for most people. Being out like this, that's too much. But you want to focus on the sit move, which gives you closer to a single plane. It's easier on me, everything. As I hit the ball higher, it floats in. Go out there and catch it. Won't even hurt you. I would say I couldn't release. I was down here too far. I couldn't release. Now, I was wrong all my life. So I tell a student, forget about the single plane. Work on the sit move. That's the key. Zero side spin. Now, Titleist has a machine to measure side spin. The only one that would ever hit the ball consistently was zero side spin was Moe Norman. But he could curve shots when he wanted to. But when I was a kid, they told you don't try and hit the ball straight because you lose it either way. Well, it's true if you bend the ball too. I could bend it too much or too little, or I could go a double cross. So that argument doesn't hold water. But it's easier if you hit the ball straight. And you want to hit pins, that's the way to do it, because you're tracking the whole way. You're tracking the pin the whole way. You're not coming across it. You don't have to be as accurate. You can hit in front of the pin, roll up and hit the pin. You hit the pin on the fly. You can even go behind the pin and spin it back. Now, spinning a ball on a driver, we were talking about, Moe was talking about hitting the driver on the upswing, and he says to me, why would you want spin on a driver? I couldn't give him an answer. You don't want to spin because it takes energy to spin a ball, right? So instead of spinning the ball with energy, you're putting the energy into propulsion of the ball. I shaved the grooves off my driver years ago, Moe said. He said, why would you want spin on a driver? No reason. You want propulsion. Because Moe loved hitting pins. He loved hitting pure shots straight at the stick. He loved hitting pins. Joy, purity of ball flight. Yeah, miss it either way. Hitting pins. Straight left arm at impact. Now, if I'm going to squat first and jump and spin, I'm working away from the centrifugal force that's being created by the motion of the club, the arms and the hands. So it's much more likely my lead arm is going to straighten out because I'm working away from the centrifugal force. But if I'm working with the centrifugal force, there's very less likelihood for my lead arm to straighten out because I'm working with gravity and with the centrifugal force. So don't worry about having a warping left arm at impact. That's advantageous to a lot of people, believe. Like Jordan Spieth. He doesn't have a straight left arm at impact. Brooks Koepka. Calvin Peete, when I was a kid, he fell out of the tree and broke his arm. He couldn't straighten it out. There's another one called Ed Fergal. He won the U.S. Open in 1954. He beat Ben Hogan. He never had a straight left arm. Left heel lift. Now, if I'm going to make myself lower on the backswing, it's easier for me to keep my left heel on the ground. But if I'm going to stay tall with my knee and my weight forward, balance points in forward position, I'm much more likely to have my left heel come off the ground. Now here I have a double image here of Moe Norman's lead foot because he used to hit a driver. He'd have both feet pointing straight ahead. You can't hit a ball like that. You have to have the lead foot turned about a quarter of a turn out towards the target. So what Moe would do is he'd start with both feet going straight, but in the middle of a swing he would lift his heel, turn his foot as he pivoted to his lead leg, and drop his heel down, effectively narrowing his stance in midstream. That's what he did. That's why I have this here. Take a look at the video. You'll see, look closely at it, you'll see that's what he did. And Dr. Sudi asked Moe, so you get lower on downswing. The lower the better. The lower the better. Sure, I get lower on the downswing. Never make yourself taller. He's talking about the downswing. I'll take it a step farther and say, never make yourself lower on the backswing. Stay up on the backswing because you're going to prepare for the sit move. Preparation for a dynamic sit move, yeah. Like to have a lead left, yeah. But most improved throughout the years. Moe improved throughout the years. He used to swivel on his lead heel when he was a young man. But as the years went by, he became more stable with his lead foot. Because he realized you want to reduce the moving parts and be more consistent. Let your head move, as I said before. I'm going to talk about the sit move here a little bit. All these factors are part of the sit move. You're building a pure arm you're building a platform for a pure arm swing. It's less effort. Lead and lag. Building a platform for a pure arm swing, like a cat lands on its feet. But I want to point out something here that when I was a kid, there was a song on the radio, the hip bone's connected to the thigh bone and all that stuff. So I don't worry about the hips. Forget I played on my legs, so wherever I do with my legs, the hips are going to follow. I don't worry about the shoulders, because wherever I swing my arms, the shoulders are going to follow too. And I don't worry about the head movement, because the head is going to go wherever the torso takes it. A lot less to worry about. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, Jack Nicklaus, he moved his head around a lot during the swing. But one exception to that is John Daly. John Daly had the stillest head through the business zone I've ever seen. He really keeps his head rock solid. Right? He moves around before and after the business zone, but through the business zone he's very, very stable. That's why he's one of the very precise players that's ever played the game, including a short game. So something's got to give. If in a full swing with a driver, if I keep my head still, my feet have to give way. Whereas if I keep my feet solid, my head's going to move. My torso, I'm laddering so much. Playing the legs. I don't play on top of my legs, I play into my legs. So in order to play into my legs, I have to stay outside my legs on the way back. Inverse proportionality. Now, I used to take lessons from pros, and I'd always pick on my trail leg because I think subconsciously I tried to keep it firm until I played into my legs. But they'd always say, oh, you have to flex your leg at address and keep it flexed throughout the whole swing. Right? They'd always pick on that. But that's not the way Moe did it. Swing within yourself. Now, a lot of people have ruined their swings by trying to kill the ball. You have to swing within yourself. The least amount of physical effort. Fewest number of moving parts. Fewer injuries. I used to have a problem with my lead ankle. Jumping and spinning, ow, it hurts me to do it even now. If I turn on my ankle like that, that hurts. So Ben Hogan had the same problem. So he decided, well, I move my lead foot out past my lead shoulder so that when I finish my swing, I'm flatter on my foot. I'm not on the side of my ankle. Another thing for me was the grip. With a Varden grip, overlap, I would tear skin out my thumb. But with a 10-finger grip, especially a split-handed grip, palm grip, I don't have that problem anymore. Don't need a glove either. Greatest results, which means the lowest scores. The highest level of repeatability. Swing within yourself so you can do it the same over and over again. Greater reliance on internal balance and instincts and less on conscious thought. Zero side spins. Greatest efficiency. Matter of fact, if I went to a teaching professional and told them I wanted to swing a golf club like Moe Norman, they'd become offended. Don't swing like Moe, swing like me, I'm the man. Yeah, but he's the best striker. They said, no, well, he's one of the best. Free as a bird. Now, with my grip, because I have a palm grip, I'm free as a bird. I'm not bunched and tied up. I don't have two fingers on top of each other like I'm in a cage. I'm free to swing with my palm grip. And I'm also free to move laterally because I have a wide stance. Free as a bird. And I have absolute confidence in the method. As I mentioned before, a cat always lands on its feet. It uses internal balance and instincts. It doesn't use conscious thought. By the time it hits the ground, he's perfect balance. The joy of golf is happiness. Intoxication without the hangover. Stimulation without the pills. They say it's a boy's pastime, but it builds men. Clears the mind, rejuvenates the body. The price is high, but rewards are richer. Golf is truly happiness to those who know and love the game. Every muscle enjoys it. Right at the stick. Hitting pins. Moe used to play the hole backwards. One time he asked me, what hole is this? I'd say, well, for you, Moe, it's about driving a 9-iron. Here's your 9-iron on the tee. And when he did it once at point grade, he put the driver a foot away from the hole. Amazing. Importance of mass. Moe used to say, speed's important, but so is mass. You need to have mass in order, because the ball is more affected by the impact when you have greater mass. Heavier objects are less affected by outside forces, just like the motorcycle. Something I call the bulldozer effect. I'll explain that when I talk about the wedge later. Importance of a wide stance so I can move laterally. Free as a bird. Fewer moving parts. I can't spin because I'm laddering so much. Just like a ballerina or a figure skater, what do they want to do when they want to spin faster? They make themselves smaller and taller. They want to slow down, they make themselves wider and lower. I can't spin, I'm laddering so much. As I said, this is an instructional video from myself to myself. This is what I want to have known when I was 14 years of age. I would have changed a lot of things. Now, physics of the Moe Norman golf swing. The definition of physics is the study of mass, energy, motion, and force. As soon as I heard that, I want to study the physics of Moe Norman's golf swing under the tutorship of Professor Ronald Arthur Nordman. And I did that as an elective because when I was a young kid in high school, I was told, you can't go to university because you don't have a second language. And then you had to have at that time, it was French. And I tried, I just couldn't do it. I got not to a high enough level to read and write and comprehend and to go to university. So for me to take physics would be a waste of time. Because you can't go to university anyway. You're wasting your time. Well, I didn't care. I said, I'm going to learn Moe Norman's golf swing, the physics, and I'm going to take physics as an elective to do it. Even though Professor Norman, he ran his laboratory with an iron fist and he was very demanding. But I already knew him. So it was a little bit easier for me. Then every year, Professor Norman would get out in the front of the entire assembly. He'd have a chalkboard and a piece of chalk and he'd go, whoosh, whoosh. He'd make a perfect circle. You couldn't find a flaw in it anywhere. He'd do it very, the first time I ever realized that Professor Norman was a lot like Moe Norman, the golfer, because he was quick and he was accurate. You don't have to spend a long time. It's like Count Yogi. He would hit the ball without fuss, without a lot of time, and Moe used to watch him do his trick shots. He realized you don't have to spend a long time to be precise and accurate. And Professor Norman, he was the first one to tell me, point out the fact that muscles only pull, they never push. So even though you're pushing something, your muscles are actually pulling. 80% of this game is knowledge, the rest is insight. The results of a misspent youth, taking physics as an elective. Crazy. Now, it wouldn't seem that crazy today. Now we know Moe Norman has a perfectly, biomechanically perfect swing. He's best striker. But in those days, he was considered crazy. He was considered a screwball. Even my own father used to call him that. Perfect blueprint to a perfect golf swing. It's easier on the body, less stressful and strain, more repeatable. Zero doubt of the mechanics. This is the program I would follow if I was 14 years old again. This is a blueprint I would follow. I want to show you something about the balance points. Little chart I made up. Just like we broke the swing into five little parts. Starts here in the middle. Number 2 goes to the tipping point. Number 3 is well on his way to recovering his balance. And number 4 is on perfect balance. Same with the trail foot. Number 1. Number 2, he's at the tipping point. Number 3, he's well on his way to reclaiming his balance. Number 4, perfect balance every time. This is his stance is at 1 and 3. His ratio is a harmonic balance ratio is 1 and 3 for the length of the foot and the width of the stance. This one you have wrinkles. No wrinkles in this one. Never see a spike or a wrinkle. Like after I hit balls for hours, I can still go in the clubhouse and dance. Distance versus purity of technique. Now, most golfers, they want distance, so what do? They push away from the earth and jump and spin for speed. Whereas Moe, he embraced the earth for purity of technique. And remember, distance must be measured in averages. In 1971, a Golf Digest did a research project to determine the best shot maker. It turns out to be Billy Casper. Gary Player was number 2. The most accurate driver was George Newson, number 2 in greens and regulation. But the interesting thing about that study was that they couldn't believe how long Lee Trevino was. Lee Trevino was not a long hitter, but he was such a solid hitter, a solid striker, that his longest drive was very close to his average drive, or his shortest drive. It's like an antique car. I would judge the quality of an antique car by the maximum speed and the cruising speed. How small is that gap? The smaller the gap, the higher the quality of the car. Because you can have a car that does 120 miles an hour, but at 70 it shakes. Or you can have a car that does 90 miles an hour top speed, but at 80 it's still solid. Quality. It's just like a golfer in distance. Yeah, a lot of people, young people are discouraged from playing golf because they see Tiger or Rory out there hitting at 320 yards. I'll never be able to do that. I'll play soccer instead. Whereas if they throttle things back a little bit, and you might argue, well, how can Bernard Langer compete at the Masters if they throttle back the equipment? Well, throttle back the course too. Put it back almost the way it was before. All this thing about distance, ever since I was a kid in the 60s. Distance, distance, distance. Everybody wants more distance. What they really want is lower scores. And the accuracy of distance, precision. It's like the 12th hole at Augusta. That's a good example. Bigger muscles are used more in order to swing a heavy club. In the study of music, they used to tell us, well, it's better to practice a lot of short sessions rather than just a few long ones. Like once a week for 8 hours, you practice a lot of short sessions. Now I want to talk about Fosbury Flop, because he was considered crazy, and the German coaches told him, you're never going to be successful going over the bar backwards. And I heard coaches say, oh, once this Dick Fosbury's out of the way, you'll never hear about that method again. Were they wrong? So if I'm a student in high school learning the high jump, and the teacher doesn't get it right, how can I get it right? I have to go over their heads. I have to figure it out for myself. It was Dick Fosbury was an engineering student at Oregon State University, and he devised this way of going over the bar backwards. Now they all do it that way. It's the only way to high jump now, because it's more efficient, just like the Moe Norman golf swing, in my opinion. But the problem with Dick Fosbury was he received a lot of success all of a sudden. And then for a young man, that's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. It's like Moe Norman said, like success is like eating an apple. You don't guzzle the whole thing down, you take one bite at a time. So I know I'm going to be successful with my university. The question is how much and how fast. It's not up to me. And it was the young people who figured it out. I mentioned it before, but Dick Fosbury, look at one of his videos, you'll find that it was the young people who figured it out first. It wasn't the elder statesmen or the senior coaches or instructors. The young people thought, hey, that's pretty cool, going over the bar backwards. I think I'll try that. Coaches wouldn't touch us because you can't teach what you don't understand, just like the Moe Norman golf swing. Nobody would teach the Moe Norman golf swing because nobody understood it. It's like the fiberglass pole and the pole vault. Talk about that for a minute. I was a pole vaulter, and I was interested, in high school, I was interested in the latest scientific discoveries. The first one was the fiberglass pole. Now you can store energy, and it changed your technique. Because the original technique was you run up to the pole for the pit, and just as you get there, you slide your hand up and swing. Well, with a fiberglass pole, you didn't do that. You just kept your hand where it is and bend the pole and store energy in the pole. So the new equipment allowed for new technique, just like the high jump where you can land on your neck, because the foam is this high, nice and soft, the landing area, so you can land on your neck. Before you couldn't do it. You land in a sand pit. You couldn't do that. As I remember in a track meet one time, this little fella, he only went halfway up the runway. I'd go all the way to the runway and run as fast as I could to get as high as I could. He'd only go halfway and have a choppy little steps and go 2/3 speed, but he would go up because he'd bend the pole. Technique, science, not violence. Simple once understood. Now, it's such an easy swing. It's such a simple way. Once you figure out all the moving parts and the sequence, it is quite simple and easy. But you have to go about the right procedures. It's like a Batman riddle. Confusing at first if you don't know what the answer to the riddle is. Moe said the game's so easy it's laughable. 10 years on the tour, Moe never shot over 74. 7 years, he only put one ball out of bounds. Incredibly successful. Aches, pains, and broken skin. I talked about that before. Whereas if I'm jumping and spinning, and especially if I'm practicing hitting drivers, look what I'm doing with my lead leg. I'm straightening out that leg. I'm putting a lot of stress on my knee, whereas Moe's swing is absorbing the energy. And I was talking about my lead ankle. Ow! Whereas if I have a wide stance, I don't put any stress on my lead ankle. So it's much easier on the body, so I can have a longer career with fewer injuries. How many operations has Tiger had on his knee? Longevity of career. Changes throughout career. Now, Moe Norman had some changes throughout his career as he learned. He used to say when he was a young man, the lower hand, strictly fingers in the grip. Then he changed. He says, I'm the only golfer with a perfect grip right through the the lifeline in the palm of my lower hand. Just like I'm shaking hands with a flagstick. He changed a few things in his career. Like I say, he used to swivel on his lead foot, and then it got to the point where his big toe would never move on his lead foot. We roll our ankles. We don't lift as much as he used to. He became more stable. With 72 years of age, I was wrong all my life. Now the driver, I talked about the driver and how we shaved the grooves off his driver years earlier. You don't want spin on a driver. You want to hit it on the upswing. And because he's low and long, he can hit the driver way out in front of him, 2 feet out in front of him, because he's low and long. Once I jump and spin, I've compromised my position. I can no longer do that. That's why you can hit the ball low in the wind. Why would you want spin on a driver? Now the wedge. Now I go to a super heavy head on the wedge. So it's something I call the bulldozer effect. I don't worry about stubbing the club in the ground anymore. Because I have confidence in the mass, I'm going to plow right through the turf or the sand or whatever in the way. I can relax now because I have mass and I have confidence in the mass, and I don't have to force anything. So I used to be a bad chipper. I used to 6 to 8 feet on average if I missed the green and went down the swale. So I'd have a 7-foot putt on average 4 or 5 times around. With a heavier wedge I went to, now I'm hitting the ball 3 to 4 feet. So now it's a 3.5-foot putt 4 or 5 times. It's a big difference. You make a big difference in your score at the end of the day if you're putting from 3.5 foot instead of 7 feet. The bulldozer effect. Because most manufacturers, they add weight. The shorter the club, the heavier the head. But when they get to the wedge, they make an extra heavy jump because they're less interested in distance and more interested in precision and putting the ball close to the hole or in a striking position. The putter. Moe used to say, I like to think I'm trapping. I like to feel like I'm trapping the ball. Now, when you're in a tournament and you're excited and the greens are fast, there's a tendency sometimes to hit the ball too hard. Moe used to do that when he was nervous. So I like to hit the brakes. I like to jab like Gary Player, heavy club, but so that I'm less likely to hit the ball too far past the hole if I'm hitting the brakes. I think it's easier to control the speed of a moving vehicle with the brakes rather than the accelerator. So that's what I do. I have a bit slightly longer back. I don't have a short backswing and accelerate. I have a little relaxed, unhurried backswing, so I have time and distance to gauge the speed of the blade before I make contact with the ball. Hit the brakes. Gary Player, he always liked to have a heavy putter. Sand shots. Now, Moe Norman could never make a figure 8 like Phil Rogers taught Jack Nicklaus with the sand shots. It's like a figure 8. Well, he couldn't do that. He can't go across the line. He has to go straight to the hole. So, what is it, Sandy Randy he used? So he would, with the sand shots, he would hit straight at it, and not a figure 8. Straight line geometry. Now the wind, as I said before, Moe can hit the ball low because he's low and long, and you can't go wrong. Even with a driver teed it up high, you can still hit the ball low. Keep it under the wind. Sound. Well, some people want to know about the sound. Why is the sound different? Well, Moe is transferring a maximum amount of energy from a club head to the ball because he has a long line of compression, square and level blade through impact, and because he has a heavier head, the ball is more affected by the impact, so that's a different sound. And if with a driver, it was a bit loud smack when he hit a driver, especially because he has no grooves. Smack, and away that driver would go. Play a hole backwards. I mentioned it before. He loved to play hole. It's about hang time, I figure. Because instead of seeing a wedge or a 9-iron go towards the stick, now he's hitting a 3-wood or a driver. It's more enjoyable. Give himself more variety. Especially if you have a beautiful backdrop. Course design and architecture. Now, Moe's favorite courses were narrow golf courses. It gave him an advantage because he could hit the ball so straight, right? It's less cutting, less maintenance, less water, less fertilizer, less everything. If you have a narrower golf course, you have a smaller golf course, which is less maintenance. and greater emphasis on accuracy and precision rather than distance. Too many biscuits in the breadbasket. Now, when Moe Norman was in high school, he was 130 pounds. When he won the Canadian Amateur in his mid-20s, he was 140 pounds. When I caddied for him in 1975, he was 46 years of age, he was 200 pounds. So that's 3 pounds a year for 20 years he gained. So one night, his routine used to be to play around the golf, the tournament, then he'd come out after a break and he'd hit balls and shoot the breeze with the fellas. And one time he was hitting balls, he says to me, he says, I can't make the master move anymore, I'm too fat. And I was hurt by that. Here I've been following for almost 10 years, the greatest ball striker. He can't make the master move because he's too fat. So I had to say something. So your game's about control. Sure. Well, so's your intake of food. And it wasn't too many months later, it was on TV and the announcer said about Moe, he said, to lose that much weight that quickly can't be good for you. Well, it's not good to walk around 200 pounds if you're a small person. So he lost a lot of weight and became a better golfer too. Hygiene and intellectual capacity. I teach at my university that Moe was a very clean person, and your intellectual capacity is directly connected to your personal and household hygiene. So it's good to be very, very clean. Imagination versus reality. Sometimes Moe would say he did something, but our eyes don't lie, and the video tells us the truth. So if it's contrary to the video, he didn't do it. He just thinks he did it. A big thanks. Now, I want to thank some people. Like Todd Graves. Nobody's done more to advance and promote the Moe Norman method than Todd Graves. Mark Evershed made the video. Craig Shanklin, Tim O'Connor wrote the book, Feeling of Greatness. Jim Sooty, Dr. Jim Sooty, Kelly Murray, Wayne Gretzky showed a great interest in making a movie about him. Greg Laverne, Barry Morrow, Peter Fox, Lauren Rubenstein, Jack Kirkendall. The list is growing all the time. Now, George Newson used to say there's 2 pivot points in the game of golf, and the head's not one of them. It's a trail leg going back and the lead leg going forward. So that's why you have a change. Like, was it Bruce Litsky and Craig Statler both had the same move. When they get to the top, their hands would come up a little bit because they pivot from their trail leg to their lead leg, and they didn't work against that. Some coaches would say, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see your hands go up. I want to see them stay or go down. Well, they didn't work against it. Now, in my previous video, I made some mistakes. I really didn't know very much. But so a lot of things are superseded. I made a lot of mistakes in that video, but now I know a lot more about it. Movies and documentaries. I want to see more movies and documentaries about Moe Norman. When I was 15 years of age, I remember telling people, we should make a movie about this man. He's so incredible. I'll play the part of him when he was 15. Of course, people would laugh and say, oh, nobody make a movie about that. Not now. Things have changed a lot. Human interest story. Launching a new career. Now, I'm starting out my university now, called the University of Murray Irwin Norman Studies, and I'm looking for sponsorship or partnership, investor to work with me to advance and promote the Moe Norman ball striking method. That's my main goal right now. Take it to the limit. You want to have weak a grip on that top hand as you can. I don't want it over like this. I want that thumb going straight up and down. Sit move, I want to take it to the limit. I want to have as deep a sit move as I can make. I see that with people who try and swing like Moe. They don't have the same depth of sit move I see with Moe. Fate and destiny. Now, if it hadn't been for Moe's injury to his brain as a child, we would never have heard of Moe Norman. But because of that injury, as you're a young person, you're much more able to recover from a brain injury. And other parts of the brain pick up the energy that's lost by the damaged area. So that's why Moe is a world-class mathematician in grade 2. Otherwise, you would never heard of him. The future looks good. Now I'm looking forward to working with individuals, or an individual or an entity in my university.